Well, I messed up. If this is your first time here, my name is Christian, and I'm currently prepping for my first ultra marathon, a 12-hour race called the Loopy Looper Ultra, which is taking place on August 3rd. So in like 2 days. If you watched my last video about running tips, then you might remember when I said this. Unfortunately, I learned this one the hard way through experience, but don't do what I did, which is unfortunately increasing my weekly mileage way too quickly, which ended up with me having all kinds of different problems with my knees and my ankles. When I decided to move this channel in the direction of talking about personal development through the perspective of being an ultra runner and that journey over the next few years, I promised myself that I would never do it only talking about the highlights. I want this to be a place where I can talk about both the good and the bad sides of what it takes to be an endurance athlete, because I think through failure is where we learn the most about ourselves. I also believe that the wisest people are able to learn through the mistakes of others, so hopefully there's some people out there that can learn from my mistakes if I'm willing to share them and stop themselves from falling into the same pitfalls as I do. First, let me back up a little bit and explain what happened and how I got injured, and then we can talk about the 3 things I'm doing to solve this problem. A few weeks ago, I was out on a run, and honestly, it was like the best run of my life. I was absolutely flying. It felt effortless. It was like the dream scenario for a runner. Out of nowhere, I got this shooting pain in my knee. It was obvious immediately that this was not just normal soreness or a fatigue type of issue. I knew right away that I was in trouble. I hobbled my way back to my house, like a half mile, in the pouring rain, I might add, and I just gave it a few days of normal stretching, taking some walks to see if I could work things out on my own. But ultimately, I needed to look for some outside help. That brings us to strategy number 1 that I've been using to try to solve this problem. I have started physical therapy. I feel like I exhausted my use of Dr. Google to figure out what was wrong on my own. I was able to make some progress doing stuff like couch stretches and foam rolling and strength training, but with how little time I had between the injury and the race, I wanted to make sure I could use my time as effectively as possible. It's been nice just having someone who sees these kinds of injuries all the time tell me with a lot of confidence what they think is wrong and give me some specific exercises to help strengthen those areas. From what I understand without getting too deep into all the anatomy stuff is that I'm having issues with my quad and groin muscles, and it's really common to feel that where those muscles tie into your knee. Could I have found that out on my own? Maybe. But is it worth the time that it takes me to figure that out and never really be 100% confident that that's the problem? Not really. So the exercises that I was given are focused on strengthening and stabilizing those areas. Number 2, the next thing that I'm doing is cross-training by cycling. From some of the research that I've read, I don't think that cross-training is always beneficial, at least from a cardiovascular standpoint specific for ultra running. And feel free to tell me I'm wrong, but that's just how I understand it. In my case, since I can do that pain-free, I think it's been worthwhile though. Even if it hasn't directly impacted my running as much as, well, running would. I think the biggest benefit of this has actually been mental. This has been a rough few weeks, being so unsure about how this injury was going to affect my running long term, and being able to cycle has kept me active outside and at least gave me hope that I'm not completely regressing. And the last thing I'm doing is managing my expectations and goals. I say this all fully realizing the possibility of it sounding super corny, but I had really high hopes to be able to finish somewhere between 50 and 60 miles before I got injured. After a few days of wallowing in self-pity, I decided that the original goal of just being able to be a part of the race and finish it was much more important than some sort of arbitrary mileage goal that I had made myself. Ideally, I'll have the ability to run for years to come, and just being able to be part of the community and say that I've successfully completed an ultra marathon is really the most important part, even if I end up walking every single step of this race. And just to note, my physical therapist did actually give me the okay to walk the race. He just said, don't go too crazy. But I think this applies to just about every aspect of life, and it's something I've had to learn time and time again. Life rarely ever goes to plan, and you just have to make the best out of the cards that you're dealt. Anyways, that's it for today. Hopefully the next video will be a fun recap of the race experience. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, then I'll see you in the next one.